Hi, it's Drew Tignanelli. This is our August update here with Michael P. McCarthy. Michael, how are you?
I'm doing great.
Yeah. We have a market that has been showing some signs of fatigue. I guess that's a good way to put it, fatigue, in the fact that the market has actually had some of its worst days in the last few weeks of July that we've seen in
Yep.
quite a while,
Yeah, a lot of
which is
volatility.
a lot of volatility. But the funny thing about it is, Mike, is that market was down one day. The NASDAQ was down 3.6%. The S&P 500 was down 2.5%. Pretty bad numbers historically. Those are
Right.
those are pretty big numbers. But at the same time, the underlying market, it was really only those 10 stocks,
Yeah.
those 7 stocks, that really led.
NVIDIA, Tesla, Amazon, Meta, Google, and Microsoft, right?
Apple, don't forget Apple,
Apple. Got Apple.
gotta throw an apple in there once in a while. So yeah, but the concentration of the market into those handful of companies is greater than it's ever been. And
Drew, what would you say last month was your most called in topic or stock?
the last 2 or 3 months, it's should I buy Nvidia? Should I buy Nvidia? Should I buy Nvidia? Do we own Nvidia? How much Nvidia do we own?
Right.
Why don't we own enough? Why don't we own more Nvidia? And so forth. Um, Nvidia is the big topic because it's going up, but there's a big difference, Mike, between Wall Street and Walmart. Do you know what it is?
No, go ahead.
In Walmart, they used to scream out, "We're having a discount sale for big screen TVs in aisle number 22 for $50 a piece." And people would herd over there to get the big screen TV that's selling for this discounted price. In Wall Street, when Nvidia goes up tenfold, everybody is flooded over to Nvidia to buy it because that's where you're making money. And they think that it'll do it again another tenfold.
Yeah.
And they don't want to miss out. It's called the behavioral finance term for it is FOMO, fear of missing out. Fear of missing out, FOMO.
Well,
And
and most of our growth portfolio, not most, I say our growth models and growth and income models, and they all own a portion of the stock market. So I think at one point, Chris O'Shea, our CFO, estimated that we probably had about 2% of NVIDIA already in our growth models.
yeah, I mean, if you because of the concentration of those stocks, and because we always keep a fairly healthy amount in large cap stocks, it's only logical we're going to own 1.5 to 3%, or even possibly. I think once we got up to like 4% of Microsoft in our overall portfolios. Right now, I think we run at about 1 to 2% of each of those big name companies. But compared to the S&P 500, which like 30% of the index is those handful of companies, when they go
Right.
up, it's fantastic. But when they go down, it's pretty amazing how fast they can go down. It's even faster when they go down than when they go up. So
Yeah.
anyway,
Well,
the
my favorite topic is to talk about the Federal Reserve and what's going on with them.
my favorite group of people. But go ahead, tell me what's going on with them.
Well, it's just to say that I guess potential rate cuts in the future are becoming more and more likely. I know this is what do they call that? Something I've said many times before, but the PCE, the personal consumption expenditures, which is a measure of prices across the board, but it takes out energy and food, which is more volatile, and that's their preferred inflation gauge, as you've said. And that's down to 2.6% for the trailing 12 months. So it's getting closer and closer to their target.
Yeah, and there's a lot of reason in my mind to believe that the economy is headed into a recession. You're seeing people struggling to pay their bills. You're seeing the labor market starting to weaken more and more. These are clear signs that the economy is struggling right now.
Yeah, those signs are certainly there. The good news is that there's also signs that the economy is doing well. The second quarter for 2024 GDP came out, and it came out at 2.8% growth annualized, which was a good bit higher, almost a third higher than they expected it to be.
Those get adjusted up and down.
Yeah,
So
and it's looking backward, not forward.
yeah, we'll have to look into the future and see what they actually say the actual rate is. But you know, the forward-looking things are starting to look negatively, and that's why I worry. But you know, you've gone through many recessions or downturns of the economy. It doesn't even have to be a recession. It could just be a dramatic slowdown where you don't turn negative for 2 full quarters. And that's not the definition of recession either, Mike.
Right.
Two negative quarters is not a recession. It's when these group of mysterious people say we're in a recession.
Yeah.
That's the technical definition of recession. I don't even know who those people.
And the funny part is it's not even they say we're in a recession. They're saying that was a recession.
That's true. That's true. Well, what they say is we are now in a recession, or that was a recession. We didn't notice it at the time, but that was a recession. But normally they say we are now in a recession, and normally it's 3, 4, 5 months later that they tell you that they think we're in a recession. But anyway, you know, Mike, one of the things we always have to keep in mind is that we get clients calling us who are conservative, fearful of this one getting elected. We got clients that turn toward the liberal side, and they're fearful this one's going to be elected, and they're terrified. They want to get all their money out of the market before that one or that one gets elected. But you know, there's some fascinating statistics on this, right?
Oh, absolutely.
So last 70 years, since 1950, you put 100,000 in the market, and you vote, you only leave your money in the market when a Republican is in office. What happens?
You leave it.
You're reading. You're like Joe Biden. You're reading.
I know. Well, I told you, so we do notes for this. I do bullet points. He writes long form, and I can't pick it up that quickly. But is it $1 million?
It's $1 million. And the Democrats were in office, and you only left your money in when Democratic presidents were often, it's 3.2 million. And if you just go ahead, if you just left your money in the market, Mike, you don't worry. Who's the president? I don't care. What happens?
32,600,000.
That if that doesn't speak to people, I don't know what we can. If that doesn't speak to you to say, don't worry. And you know, Mike, why that's true? It's because of the beauty of the way our founding fathers set our country up. It's the division of power. It's the executive branch, the House, the Senate, and the judiciary, that no president can just do whatever they want to do. No House of Representatives can do whatever they want to do. No senator can do what they want to do. No judiciary can just do whatever they want to do, because each one of them continues to influence the other, and it forces them to only do the things that are logical for everyone. And our economy tends to survive because of that. Our country has been a contentious country since we were first created. You ever read the stories about the founding fathers? Most of them didn't like each other.
Oh, yeah. Shooting at each other in duels and whatnot.
Fist fights occasionally, you know, and things, calling each other, you know, they're very polite about how they called each other names. But we were a contentious country since we were created. We went through the bloodiest war ever in the history of our country in 1860, you know. So, you know, this is like, you know, this is just part of the pie of America. And I'm really not all that concerned about it. It's the way the economy operates. The group you have to watch always is the Federal Reserve. They're the ones. Their power and what they can do to the economy is unprecedented.
Yep.
There's no doubt about that,
That's
you
why I
know?
love talking about them.
That's what I like to say, Mike, is that when the Federal Reserve blows in the balloon of the economy expands. When the Federal Reserve chooses not to, the balloon either stops or it starts to contract. And they're the ones that can really impact the economy. So keep your eye on them.
Absolutely.
Anyway, let's go to our financial planning topics.
All right. So Drew, let me ask you, what is a comprehensive advisor?
Well, most people just say, hey, she's a financial advisor. But there's no truth to the fact that somebody's a financial advisor, in my opinion, or your opinion, I'm speaking for
Yeah.
you, is because somebody who just invests money is not a financial advisor. Somebody who just invests money and does a couple other little things to that has to do with your investments is not a financial advisor. A financial advisor should be absolutely comprehensive. They should be able to help you with Medicare and Social Security, help you with income taxes, thorough help with income taxes, not just give you a little trivia here or there, or tell you
Know the changes as they happen.
yeah, and tell you to go talk to your tax preparer. They should be able to help you with your estate planning as not the same level as the estate planning attorney, but they should be able to guide you in that whole scenario of estate
Well, and
planning.
understand how important, things like titling and how important titling on different types of assets could affect taxes.
There's a ton of things in estate planning that the financial advisor needs to do. Personal finances have become incredibly complicated. Auto insurance, home insurance, long-term care insurance, life insurance, company benefits. I mean, just company benefits alone, knowing how to deal with those is an extremely complicated. Most people go into work, they choose some things, think they got it right. We fix company benefits more often than you can imagine. We fix insurance policies more often than you can. It's the thing we fix the most is insurance policies. We amend clients' tax returns when they come in the first time to do it. Financial physical with us. We amend their tax returns a lot because they're mistakes that were made, and they can be substantial mistakes. But most people are dealing with people who are investment managers or investment salespeople or whatever. And they're not comprehensive advisors. They need to be like a doctor, somebody who operates the way a doctor in medicine would operate. They have a broad general knowledge, and they can be like your quarterback or your coach to guide you in all of those decisions you got to make about your personal finance. That's what a comprehensive.
When you think of that analogy, make sure you're picturing a good doctor.
Well, that's true. It's the medical profession has changed some.
It has changed some since the beginning of us using that analogy.
Yeah, and so forth. But the other thing I wanted to talk about today is that Medicare can be confusing also and complicated. And something that many people think and take for granted is how do you get a Medicare supplemental insurance? Because Medicare only pays about 60% of the bill. Most people don't realize that. You can't just get Medicare. You got to get a supplemental to pick up the rest of Medicare. But that happens.
Yeah.
The Medicare supplemental is very confusing. You and I, in a private company, when we retire or when I retire,
We'll
you got a little ways to go.
Yes, I do.
I get Medigap insurance to cover the rest of my Medicare. If I work for IBM or Disney or Lockheed Martin or something like that, I might get my retirement Medicare supplemental insurance as a retiree benefit from the company that I worked for. If I work for the state of Maryland, I might get my Medicare supplemental from the state that I work for. But if you're a private company or a small business of any sort, you're more than likely going to go to Medigap and you're gonna get a plan A through N. And those are, each one of those is different as to how they provide benefits. But the other thing you could do is Medicare Advantage. And you see that on television all the time. And people talk about it like this is the greatest thing since sliced bread. But Medicare Advantage, I personally don't want it. And I don't want to promote it to my clients because I want them to have the best medical care they can have. I want them to have the most control over the medical care they can. If they need to save money, and that's their only goal, Mike, then Medicare Advantage is the way we want to go. Because Medicare Advantage is basically you turn your medical care over to this company, and that company then decides how you get to see doctors and specialists and things of that sort. And in these trinkets, they throw in trinkets to make you feel good. Like here's some dental coverage, Mike. Here's some vision coverage. Feel good about what we're doing. Here's a lower premium, Mike. Feel good about what we're doing. Me personally, I'd rather have control and I'd rather make my own decisions. If I want to get a second opinion, I want to go see a specialist. If I want to fly across the country and see another doctor, I should be able to do that. But with Medicare Advantage, you have a pool of people in a very specific geographic location, and that's who you get to see. That's all there is to it.
Yeah, a lot less control.
A lot less control, and but it's still very confusing nowadays. You can change your Medigap policy, especially in the 30 days following your date of birth. You can change Medicare Advantage, but that's only once a year. You can change. You can't easily go back from Medicare Advantage to what was called Medicare, Original Medicare, where you have a Medigap policy. So once you make that move to Medicare Advantage, you can do it, but it's a little more complicated to go back to the original Medicare. And I think people need to really think out that Medicare, and this is where a comprehensive advisor comes in and why it's important.
Absolutely.
So, anyway, Mike, you got some articles and things coming up, webinar?
We've got a webinar and an article this month. They're both going to be on the topic of long-term care. So whether you like to watch a webinar or whether you prefer to read an article, look for that coming out in the next month. Who's doing those articles? I'm not that prepared this time.
You're not that prepared, but anyone from the team is well versed in those topics.
Yep.
But those are important topics. A lot of people need to think out long-term care. It's not an easy topic. And I always say, Mike, when thinking out long-term care, the last person you want to talk to is a long-term care insurance agent,
salesman,
until you make the decision that you're going to do long-term care.
Right.
Because they're the only ones that can sell it to you. But if
don't
you
ask
talk
a hammer what a nail looks like.
Yeah, they have all the statistics and all the scary stories to make you just say yes, but their statistics and their stories aren't necessarily the end of the equation from the risk management point of view that you should be thinking about. So,
absolutely.
Anyway, Mike, I just wanted to end this August video with a lot of strange things going on in the world and in our country. President Biden just dropped out of the presidential election. We don't know yet. It sounds like Kamala Harris is going to be the Democratic candidate. We don't know. We won't know until the Democratic convention is over and so forth. President Trump just had an assassination attempt, came literally, Mike, probably that close.
Well, it hit him.
But I'm saying that that much further over and it would have been done deal,
Yeah.
But the point of the matter is that, I grew up in the 1960s, Mike. President Kennedy was assassinated, brutally assassinated, horrible. To be a 6-year-old kid and see the pictures and everything that they showed of what happened then. And then in 1968, you had Martin Luther King assassinated, and to see what happened in the world. I was going to school that morning, Mike, and I was in 7th grade. I was in 7th grade. I'm on a transit bus headed to school. Police officers everywhere. They turn the bus around and they say, send them back, everyone, where you're going. And later I found out that there was this incredible riot taking place just 2 or 3 blocks from where we were in 7th grade, and then not even 6 months later, Bobby Kennedy is assassinated in the Democratic election, as their candidate. You can only imagine what it was to be growing up in the 60s,
Yeah.
The point of the story, though, is that, I know the end of the story. I know the end of that story, Mike. And I'm sure that I was bothered the heck out of me as to what was going on, and so forth. But I know the end of the story now, so it doesn't bother you anymore. And that's the point I want to make, is that, and if you're feeling stressed from what's going on in the world, just remember that the end of the story. I think Mark Twain said it really well. I'm an old man and have known a great many troubles, most of which have never happened. And his point is that all his life he had things that he saw that he worried about what's going to happen, how's this going to happen, what's going to happen with this, and where's this going to lead us, and so forth. And yet the worst of what he always worried about never ever happened. That doesn't mean that the worst you worry about might not happen and might happen in the future. I don't know. It might happen in the future. But even if it does, somehow or another, we muddle through it,
Yep.
That's
going.
the interesting. I can't imagine. My mother and father were raised in 1925 and 1929 through the Great Depression, through World War II, through the 1960s, and so forth, and the inflation of the 70s. And yet somehow or another, they lived to be 90, 95, 91 years old. They led an incredibly successful life. I know the end of the story, Mike, Always remember that,
Yes.
There's the end of the story is coming somewhere,
Absolutely.
Mike, this is the end of our video, and it's Stu Tignan saying God bless.